So our topic today is nervous systems, continuing from where we were before. And in particular, today I'd like to describe for you autonomic nervous system, with the idea that the autonomic nervous system is really the substrate of all of our health. So most of your clients, if not all of your clients, who come to see you for any medical condition or any health condition or any problem of any kind, it's likely, it's probable that the autonomic nervous system is a factor, if not the factor. And we're, I think, especially excited to be living in a time when something new has been discovered. Something which has, in my view, a huge, huge impact. Huge implications for therapy of any kind. And so our intention for the next hour is to attempt to describe that discovery and its implications, and hopefully take you through material that will eventually, I hope, become the basis of your practice. No matter what modality you're using, this is the crossroads, the substrate for health conditions. So we'll begin with where we left off in our last class about nervous systems. We saw a nervous system overview, and at that time we talked about the difference between central and peripheral, and below that in the peripheral the difference between sensory and motor, and below that, particularly in the motor but also somewhat in the sensory, the autonomic nervous system. And we highlighted that in conventional anatomy, open any textbook or go online and look in the encyclopedia. Any textbook today will tell you that sympathetic and parasympathetic are the two branches of the autonomic nervous system, and that they are reciprocal in their action. One is on when the other is relatively off, and vice versa. So we have this idea of a seesaw effect being the basis of how the autonomic nervous system works. In particular, when you're sleeping at night, your parasympathetic is in the foreground, and when you're active during the day, your sympathetic is in the foreground. And we also talked about, please start to differentiate between normal activity of the autonomic nervous system, that which keeps you alive, and its stress response as a subset of its activity. And this is a big difference because many books and many classes don't really make that differentiation enough. They will talk about sympathetic, and if you ask many people what is sympathetic, they'll say, oh, I know, that's fight or flight. So I'm here to tell you that no, sympathetic is the whole range of activities, including waking up in the morning, mobilization behaviors of any kind, and in addition, if we're under stress, that's what sympathetic contributes, is the fight or flight capacity. So we just begin with a favorite picture, which you've all seen before, from the internet, the story of the rescuing hug. And the story is that twin newborns, one was flourishing, the other was not. The nurse had the inspiration to put the two together as they had been just recently in the womb, and the stronger one flopped her arm over the weaker one, and something happened at that moment which could not have been, no medical intervention that is known could have done what that moment did. The weaker one's heart rate stabilized and her temperature rose to normal. There is no drugs or surgery for a newborn that could have accomplished that. And so this new discovery in anatomy and in physiology gives an anatomical and physiological explanation for what happened to get that effect. So that's where we're going. Now, to get there, I'd like to introduce you to Stephen Porges, who is the originator of the polyvagal theory. And I'd like you to become increasingly familiar with Stephen Porges. And here we see a picture of him. He is at the University of Illinois, Chicago, and a sample of some of his articles, which I highly recommend that you read. And I'll offer to you that, in my opinion, these articles are difficult reading for the layman. These are written at the highest level of science, and you'll do well to understand. You can even read a few words just on the screen and get a sense of the complexity of this style. So in a way, what I'm hoping to do just in the next short time here is to translate Porges's ideas into something that's maybe a little more understandable. And I do that with some trepidation. Obviously, there's a gap here, so I'm doing my best to fill that gap. And I also encourage you to go on the internet, Google Stephen Porges. You can find his articles, especially at traumapages.org, trauma-pages.org, and other locations. So, Stephen Porges and the polyvagal theory. First of all, what does the word polyvagal actually mean? Because you're going to hear it a lot. Polyvagal, ventral vagal, dorsal vagal are terms that you're going to hear a lot. So what does it mean? Stephen Porges, in his study in the late 1980s and early 1990s, discovered that one branch of the vagus nerve, which is cranial nerve 10, one branch is non-conforming with the criteria for inclusion as a parasympathetic nerve. It does not match the criteria for what the other part of the vagus nerve does, even though as it exits the brainstem, it is unified. It's a thread. Imagine 4 pieces of dental floss all flowing together and looking like one nerve. Well, he studied it in more detail and figured out that one of those threads was not conforming. It shouldn't be classified in the same way. And he began to explore what, in fact, that is doing. What is this 4th branch doing? And he made a differentiation about the rest of the vagus nerve, which operates especially the viscera in the abdomen and thorax, so heart, lungs, digestion, and so on. And this other branch, which curves off and goes up to the throat area, including the esophagus. And so he coined the term polyvagal to refer to that there's a difference. There's multiple. Poly means many. Vagus, many vaguses, polyvagal theory.